All right, hello and welcome. My name is Jessica Roman, and I am joined today by my lovely friend Mccall Reynolds.
Hi.
Hello. She is the mom of a very special little boy with the same diagnosis as my daughter, and I wanted to interview her today so we could talk about the incredible progress that her son is making. We met back in December, and Mccall, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you guys?
Yes, my name is Mccall Reynolds. I'm a nurse. I currently work in pre-op and PACU area for adults, and my husband is a dentist. He works in pediatrics, and then we have two sons. And then one of my sons, my older one, has MMIHS, and so that's what I'm going to talk about today.
So when did you guys get his diagnosis, and what did life look like for you up until he got his diagnosis?
He was not diagnosed until 5 years old, which isn't very common for this diagnosis or this condition, this disease process. What I understand is most children are diagnosed in utero or after birth, that they have a lot of NICU stays, or they have to get the ileostomy, the G tube, and have to have some sort of TPN. But my son was diagnosed with what's called a partial PUV in utero, and that's kind of where just the ureters, they thought there was some kind of adhesion or something wrong with the ureters, so I'd be able to have him, and then it would be an easy fix. And his bladder did show distention, but they thought it was something that just could be drained later, and it was just like an easy fix, and then he'd live a normal life after that. But ended up not being partial PUV. They just saw as a distended bladder. So what he got was a vesicostomy at 3 years old. They made a hole in the bladder to let the bladder rest and not have to do any work. So it would go into his diaper essentially. It's not as easy as what it sounds. We had to put like a pad over it because what kind of diaper goes all the way up here? So there were a lot of accidents and a lot of like learning how to take care of an infant on top of that. But he was at 6 months old, he prolapsed, his bladder prolapsed. So he had to have a resection of his bladder. It would not push back in. And so then 6 months later, so he was a year old, they reversed it. And so he had a leg back for a week. And they thought everything was okay because essentially it was only bladder. But after that, we noticed mild constipation. We went to Vanderbilt Children's, and they diagnosed him because at that time he was having emesis and like vomiting. And they said that it was possibly cyclic vomiting syndrome, where he could like vomit like for a few days and then not vomit for like a week. And it was just something he'd grow out of. But then when it was his 5th birthday, and he went to the aquarium, but he was out and about. We are not sure exactly where he contracted it from, but he got a rare type of E. coli called Shiga E. coli. And so he went to cardiogenic and septic shock, almost died at our local hospital. And so they kept him for a month straight in our local hospital, but it was during COVID. So nobody would do like a NIC or PICU to PICU transfer. But we finally got into Vanderbilt, and they transferred us a month later. And then we did genetic testing, and they told us that it was MMIHS, the visceral myopathy. And so then we later left there with a cecostomy used for venting, which did not help that much. So we got into Cincinnati Children's, and he was at that time, I guess, 5.5, 6. And so we ended up having a huge pseudo-obstruction. He ended up getting the ileostomy and the G tube then. But until that time, he was 7 without an ileostomy or a G tube. And we were able to do a bowel regimen where we would give him Miralax and do rectal irrigation, but the pseudo-obstructions became so frequent and so detrimental to his health, where he'd have to end up being on TPN for longer terms in the hospital, that our last pseudo-obstruction was 91 days in the hospital at Cincinnati Children's.
Wow, 90. I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, 91 days, but he's 8 years old now, and he'll be 9 in August.
Wow. And what is his phenotype? Do you know it?
It's like, is it the AR like 157? Is that right? It's like I think the most common one.
ARG 257, is that it?
Yes, that's it. That's it.
So that's the same as her. Yeah. That's crazy.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So up until he was 5, you guys really didn't have that much of the symptoms go on. It's crazy how quickly, when they get diagnosed, it's crazy how quickly they seem to get into multiple pseudo-obstructions.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why that happens. I'm sure it has something to do with gut dysbiosis, maybe the antibiotics from the E. coli have something to do with that. So what were you told by doctors when he was diagnosed?
Well, at Vanderbilt, we were told that we could either do the cecostomy, we could just do medication, or we could do the ileostomy and G-tube. We chose like not the invasive route as the G-tube and ileostomy because we didn't know much about this. And all of the research, when you go in and look on the research, there's not a lot of research on it. So it's worst case scenarios. It's children that have like died at birth. So you're getting this severe diagnosis where your child is on a spectrum. No child ever presents the same exact way. Some might need tube feeds, some might need TPN, but it does seem that one thing has helped him tremendously since, I mean, we've been doing the diet since this. I mean, he's been doing so well, but they couldn't tell us what to do. Basically, we just have to wait and treat the symptoms when he has a pseudo-obstruction, and they don't really know enough about it to say like long term, what can happen, or how long you're going to be in the hospital, or will you need tube feeds, will you need TPN, like will you be able to eat by mouth again, because we ate primarily by mouth for 5 years. So
yeah, it's crazy because it's such a rare diagnosis, and you go into it and you think that, okay, I'm going to see the specialist, I'm going to the best children's hospitals in the world, and even they don't have answers, which makes it very isolating and confusing, and you're just kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop and the next emergency to happen.
Oh, exactly. And when we went to Cincinnati Children's, which I felt better going there and being able to be with the best surgeons, the best GI doctors, and thinking, they told me, do you even know for sure that this is what he has? I'm like, well, genetics said this is what he had, but they were like, well, do you know like how extensive this diagnosis is? Let's go and rule out other disease processes that this could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we kind of had the same story with the doctors. It was very much like a waiting game and just waiting to see how severe it was going to be for her. What made you start looking outside of the mainstream, if anything, outside of what doctors were telling you guys? I know, what did it look like after that 91-day pseudo-obstruction? Where was he at, and what made you start looking for other answers?
So first, I'll go back just a little bit. We were with GI, and he had 4 GJs put in. So they were saying that he's going to need to be tube fed. He was still on TPN through his central on his PIC, but one of his motility doctors specifically said he probably won't be able to ever eat again. And if you feed him anything for his like psyche and his, emotional state, since he's eaten by mouth for 8 years, you could do small sips of broth. And I said, well, that's not gonna work. I prayed about it, and I was like, I'm not gonna accept this. Like, we have to find something else. And so they tried the GJs. They kept coiling back because of his anatomy. And so we ended up doing what's called a surgical J, put in the small intestine, the jejunum, and fed that way. So tube feeds. They put him on Kate Farms, which is like high fiber, the agave syrup. His stomach did not tolerate it. I was doing irrigations at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he looked like he was 9 months pregnant. I was getting out 60 ml syringes full of pure gas.
Wow.
And then I would get out stool. And I told the doctors, we're not going to be able to do this. Which, granted, now we were with intestinal rehab, and they put us on a regimen that worked for him, but still the Kate Farms.
Yeah.
And so even when we got home, I was like, okay, I guess our life is now going to be where when he goes to school, I'm going to be called at least once to the school to do an irrigation during, school time in the nurse's office. And then we're going to have to like overnight probably do an irrigation. And then I was doing irrigations when he got home from school. So that was 3 in a 24-hour period of irrigations to get out gas and stool. Nothing was moving through. And it was like I'd have to drain his stomach to even sometimes let everything move through. It was like he couldn't take anything by mouth. And then I was just like, it's a matter of time before we end up back in the hospital. But we were kind of at that point where I was like, I'll do anything it takes. We'll go anywhere if there's an alternate, diet or cure, not a cure, but like something. This isn't going to work long term. He was miserable. Like, I was miserable. We were on like walking on eggshells, because it's like, how are you going to plan your day-to-day activities or just life when you have to constantly do irrigations? And not only that, is he going to puke? Does everyone have everything they need in order for, like, if he's going to puke, we hook up the G tube or we drain the G tube? Do they know how to do irrigations to get it out? Because if not, he'll have a pseudo-obstruction because he would get so distended. So we kind of were like at our breaking point of like, he's not tolerating the feeds, even though he's tolerating them, like, because he looks like he's gaining weight, or he's tolerating them because he's not on TPN anymore. He wasn't 100% actually tolerating them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is another issue. These G-tube feeds are so bad for our kids, especially because they're plant-based, they're healthy. Pea protein is so highly fermentable, and you mentioned the fiber. Their intestines are just too weak to push them through, and the doctors don't understand that, and they think, oh, it's a plant-based formula, that's what's going to help. It absolutely destroys them. And they tried to do the same with my daughter, and I didn't let them. So, but it's like, what other option do you have? She was on TPN because she had nothing else that she could even tolerate. So TPN was really our only option. And when you guys got started with this diet, was it December of 2024?
I'm wanting to say that it was before Thanksgiving, right? Because I remember, or maybe it was before we got out of the hospital in November.
Okay.
And then shortly after we started the diet, and I think that it might have been December. I remember it was one of the holidays because I was having to make sure everything that he ate was only what he could eat.
That's awesome. And then when you guys started the diet, what was his weight? How did he look? Like, right before you got started, what was his activity level? How did his skin look?
He was super pale, and he'd have like dark circles under his eyes, or he just looked tired. He felt lethargic. He was a few pounds heavier than my 5-year-old. And he's 8, about to be 9. But out of the hospital, he was about the same size as my 5-year-old. And granted, my 5-year-old is probably in the 80th percentile, but he was just a little bit taller and a little bit heavier, maybe like max 5 pounds heavier. But since we've been doing this diet, he was now weighed at the doctor's office the other day 64 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And that means that he's gone from like 40 something pounds to 60 something pounds in that amount of time. Even the dietitian and the doctor, his doctor, she sat up off the table to take a better look at his growth chart. And she said, whatever y'all are doing, it's working.
Wow, that is amazing. So for people that don't know, we connected. We told you guys about what we did for our daughter, the no plant gaps diet. And what were the first improvements? Well, first of all, how did you feel? How did you wrap your head around, like, okay, we're going to feed this kid only meat? What was your reaction?
Okay, so at first, by the way, he has the most energy I've ever seen him have in his 8 years of life. Like, he can play with other kids. He can go out on the playground. Used to, the teachers would send me pictures, and it would be him on the playground laying down. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So
wow.
now he interacts, and like some kids wouldn't even know like that he's even been in the hospital, or anybody would even know that he was in the hospital. But he, at first, when you told me about carnivore, so my husband had researched. He'd kind of been on me trying to do carnivore, and I'm like, but that's so sad. Like, kids need to have like treats and sweets to like, be a kid, because we all eat ice cream. We all get to have this and that, which granted we didn't do like Skittles. We didn't do some of the things that are out now. We did have like healthier foods, like instead of Skittles, it might be like Giggles. So not the dyes, not the corn syrup, but it didn't matter because it was the sugar that was causing the fermentation, the fiber. So at first I was like, no offense, but I was like, okay, this lady to think that I am going to do this thinks that I can do this with my son that is 8 years old. And I'm like, maybe we're just not the same. Maybe, I said they're on a spectrum, but it doesn't matter that they're on a spectrum. If they can eat by mouth, they need to be doing carnivore, because I feel like it was night and day. I told the doctors, I'm so much more at peace with him eating carnivore, even though some of the things to do to work around it might cause us more time or more money. It's so worth it in the end from what we were dealing with beforehand, and his energy level and how he felt. And then also how I felt having to go to his room and be like, let me catch your puke. Let's get a bag. Let's go to the bathroom. Let me do an irrigation at 3:00 in the morning. Now it doesn't happen with the carnivore. There's no distention. There's so many pictures and things that we would go to where I'd have to get an extra like size larger than what he wore because his stomach would get so distended. And now there's no distension.
Wow, that's amazing. That's exactly what we saw with my daughter too. It was just like flat stomach.
And no irrigations. No irrigations.
That was the biggest part for me too, because the irrigations are so stressful. We were doing 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 at night.
Oh yeah.
And they are so stressful. And then there's just, people don't understand, if you don't have an ileostomy and you've never had to do an irrigation, there's poop everywhere.
Oh yeah.
A child that you're trying to keep clean, and you're trying to keep yourself clean, and you're home, and you have Chuck's pads everywhere, and there's poop everywhere where you're trying to get poop out of this child's intestines.
Oh yeah.
It's so stressful. And then to go to school and do it, and for him to have mom come to school to do that as well is so it's stressful. It's interrupting his day. How could he possibly focus when he feels so much pressure in his abdomen all the time?
Oh yeah. He felt like he was going to get sick, and it's just, that's not how we're supposed to live. And not only that, and the poop everywhere, but you know, kids that might have central lines, you can't get poop in that area, or you're at risk for infection. So it's like, how do you separate a sterile area from like the least sterile area possible? It's not doable, which he didn't have that going home. They pulled his out, and he's been eating by mouth now and not even needed like tube feeds in months and months now.
It's amazing.
We do broth, but that's it.
How quickly did he turn around? Like, how quickly did you say you started Carnivore and then he stabilized?
I feel like it was almost instantly. Like the first day, I was like talking to my husband. I was like, I don't know if we can do this. Like, he seems dehydrated. Like, am I doing this right? And I had so many questions. And I think that was like me messaging you. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. Am I doing this right? Like, is this okay? And so I think within probably a week, we had gotten more on track with things.
Mm-hmm.
And two, not doing spices and not doing the garlic, and finding out what works for him. Not doing garlic, not doing onions, and just it is a bland diet, but he is such a meat eater anyways. He loves like steak. He loves hamburger. He loves beef, pork, chicken. We've had a little bit of a hard time finding the bacon,
Yeah.
but because it's cured with like celery salt and brown sugar, and that was an issue when I figured out like what is causing him to have kind of like this green discoloration come out of his stomach, and he has to puke. And it was the bacon. I cut the bacon out, store-bought bacon, and then it was like a fix.
Wow. Yeah, no, we had the same issue with bacon as well. We were giving it to her and we couldn't figure out what was going on, and then I turned it around and we had it cured with celery salt as well. Mm-hmm. And it's people don't realize even something that small for a child who's as sensitive as ours can make a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And I really want the parents, hopefully, of other kids with MMIHS to hear this so they can understand just how strict you have to be with the diet. But if you're that strict, you don't have to go to the hospital and you don't have to do irrigations, and your child has a healthy, happy life.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, we do the yogurt, the White Mountain Bulgarian yogurt. He will go through the huge jars, and we do monk fruit. He likes it with a little bit of taste. Yeah. So he'll go through an entire jar to a jar and a half a day. I've had Whole Foods contact me because it comes in a case of 6, and we'll get 6 every week for them. And if we can't find it, we have to call Fresh Market. We can't find it there. We've got to be like, okay, where do they sell it? And so we'll get that as well. I feel like that's helped him have variety and be able to gain weight. And then also, like the sauerkraut juice. Mm-hmm. And I've made my own sauerkraut. And then, of course, waiting for that to ferment. But we're using up the rest of our other sauerkraut juice. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's all helped with digestion as well. Yeah. And of course, the Wellness Pro. I feel like that has helped a lot.
Yeah, that is something I think our kids can't go without, is that Wellness Pro, because it's like your saving grace. You think you're starting a pseudo-obstruction or they might have eaten the wrong thing. You get them on that Wellness Pro, run it for constipation, and you just got output galore. Like you're good.
Yeah, it's like, and we do it overnight. And so the next morning it'll be like his bag is full.
Mm-hmm. It's such a good feeling too. People don't understand too. When you've never had a child where they've had a blockage and you have no ileostomy output, like the fear, there's something wrong. And every morning seeing their pouch full is such a blessing and like a release.
Yes. It's the little things that like most people are like, ew, but you're like, no, this is great. Like, It was the pouch full. I'll ask my mom, if I'm going to work in the mornings, like, yes, it is. Or how many times did he have to empty? And people do think with carnivore that you're so limited, but you're really not. There's
No.
so many ways to cook things. We can make pancakes. Like, I know it sounds like, how would you do that? But like, we can use egg yolks, we can use egg whites, and there's all different ways to like froth the egg, how to cook it. You're not limited. You can make recipes from me, and you can do anything with eggs.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing too. And we, make little desserts like Jello and popsicles and add a little bit of stevia for sweetness. We've done the same, and it makes a big difference, and it makes them feel normal. And the cool part is there's so many carnivore influencers now. You can look up just about any recipe carnivore and you'll have something, which is cool.
Yes, we've gotten lots of recipes. I think it's like the steak and butter gal.
That's who we watch too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of recipes.
She's awesome.
Yes.
Is he playing sports now?
He's in jujitsu.
Wow.
Yes. And then he was doing piano. We're kind of taking a break for the summer, but still doing jujitsu. And then I think that we're going to get him in golf.
Awesome. We were thinking golf for our kids too. Golf.
Yeah. Yes. Or even like tennis, but something active. I feel like activity level really makes a difference as well. Like if they're at home sitting on the iPad all day long, I can see where it's like no movement, no mobility, no motility. I do believe in that. And you don't have to have them running a treadmill 24 hours a day or anything like that, but getting up here and there. And I know a lot of kids too have issues with the bladder and voiding, but our urologist has has him double voiding. So he'll pee and then he'll go play for 20 minutes or do something, and he'll go back and finishing like emptying the bladder, and it helps with that contraction.
That's interesting.
Their bladders are like flaccid, so they're not wanting to contract as much, but it's almost like training the bladder, like training it to contract. But like the more often you try to get them to pee, the more the brain signals the bladder to contract and to try to pee and void.
That's awesome. I'll have to try that too. I think the Wellness Pro really makes a big difference with the peeing too.
Yes.
I've seen that. Like, we haven't had it hooked up right now because we just switched rooms for them and switched their beds. And just the other day, for the first time in years, she was like, I can't pee, I need a catheter. I was like, what?
Oh no.
So I was like, we gotta get this Wellness Pro hooked back up.
Yes.
She was It makes a huge difference.
Yes, I believe so.
Is he on any medications still, for anyone who's wondering?
Yes, so he is, but I have weaned him off Motegrity, and the doctors were actually in shock as well. I went from 2, then down to 1 milligram, and then to nothing. And then he is on a PPI, which is for the stomach, for the acidity, but we're currently weaning him off that.
Okay.
So he's about off of the pantoprazole. You can't just wean them off because they can have rebound effects.
Okay.
So we haven't completely weaned him off that. And then he's on Mestinon. And that's kind of for emptying like the bladder, but also as well as motility. But that's what we're going to wean him off as well. I just didn't want to get off all of them at once.
Yeah.
But with the Motegrity involved, he was putting out liters and liters and liters of stool. And it was like trying to get him back to like hydration. It was almost impossible. I thought we were going to have to go to the ER and get IV hydration, but we were able to get it back with broth through his J tube, bone broth. But now with the Motegrity off, it's stabilized more. He will have days where he'll have more output than others, but we are weaning him off the PPI, and then we'll wean him off of the Mestinon.
That's awesome. So you think in a couple months or maybe even a year, he'll be off all medications.
For sure. And he was on like alternating antibiotics is what they had him on, rifaximin and Flagyl, or Augmentin and Flagyl. And it was like on 2 weeks, off 2 weeks, on 2 weeks, off 2 weeks. And so it was like dysbiosis, and his, gut health was all over the place. I would see distention 1 week, and then there'd be no distension the next. And then we've been able to stay off those for months now.
Wow, thank God. We had the same. We did 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off of Flagyl, and we ended up in emergency surgery because it just messed up her microbiome so badly,
Yeah.
so quickly. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that. What other holistic modalities do you guys use for him? I know that you guys are both super holistic minded, and that your husband has some technology at his office that he's able to use as well.
So we have what's called a Beamer, BEMER, and he will use that sometimes. It's like a red light therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they've used it in NASA, and that's kind of where he researched and saw it. It's like electromagnetic therapy, to where it helps things kind of like the Wellness Pro, but it's not as intricate. And it doesn't have all of those modalities for like pain, constipation, hemorrhoids. Like, I mean, they're in that book, there's like thousands of things. Whereas this is more like, it's like it helps the body, and it's red light therapy, but I don't feel like it works as well as like the Wellness Pro does. We'll take him to the jump park. I mean, we keep him active, outside swimming. We have a Theragun, and it's kind of like a massager. And my stomach will like massage his back, or my husband would massage his back, or his legs, kind of like lymph flow, trying to get things moving.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like with the Wellness Pro, we haven't really needed to do anything else.
That's great.
Like, we do grass-fed organic meats, which I think is a big deal. I think like you don't want the hormones, the antibiotics added into it, the meats. And we do organic bone broth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's all what you put into your body too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has a big thing to do with these kids, is like what you're being fed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, they're so sensitive, and their detox pathways are so sluggish already. Like, our intestines are our biggest detox pathway.
Mm-hmm.
Theirs are not working optimally, so they need to have the lowest toxic load that we could possibly give them.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a big difference.
I didn't mention the liver as well. You know, it has a lot of nutrients, and we were concerned with scurvy at first in carnivore, because a lot of people can just like transition to carnivore and you can get scurvy. So you need to have that vitamin C. And we're like, how do we get vitamin C without a vitamin C supplement? And we do liposomal vitamin C, but then you've got all of these added alcohol sugars. And so, of course, we do the sauerkraut juice, which you get it in that. And then the liver has so many vitamins and nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that yogurt, you get the vitamin D. We also believe in getting out in the sun first thing in the morning, seeing the sunlight. And my husband's big on grounding, going outside barefoot on the ground. And I mean, I think something's said for that. I don't know all of the research behind it. My husband does all of that. I kind of just go with the flow, as long as it's not detrimental to health or going to be anything that's harmful. And he's not that way either. Anything that's beneficial, we'll try, as long as he's not like an experiment of injections or anything like that. We're not going to do. But
yeah, we feel the same way. That's awesome. So what does his life look like today? What does he do on a daily basis?
Well, right now he's outside with my other son, who's 5. They play. He used to not be able to really go swimming. He would get tired, or he'd be so distended. It was like summers were awful. every August there'd be a pseudo-obstruction for like the past 3 years. And it was always like summer, fall months. And I just feel like he's able to swim. He's able to play on our playground. He's able to jump on the trampoline. And he has the energy to do all this, where now it's like, okay, if he's like, I'm tired, I'm like, no, you're not. You can go play, like go outside and play. Where it's like, used to it'd be like, oh, he's really tired. He can't do it. His, and his arms and circumference of his arms and legs, they were just so small. He actually has muscle tone.
Wow.
I mean, he feels better overall. And he was offered at the doctor's office after telling the doctor that we were doing carnivore. And he was like, I truly believe that if you do organic and grass-fed, and his wife's big into that, he said, I think there's something to say about going carnivore and inflammation and your gut being your second brain. And then he's like, we're leaving, and he's like, hey, do you want stickers, or there's dum-dums? And I look at him and I'm like, oh no, like he did not just offer that. Like he's going to want that. And he goes straight for the stickers and looks at me and smiles. And we get in the car, and I was like, I'm so proud of you, for choosing the stickers over the dum-dums, because I know how hard that was. And he said, I just feel so much better. I know that it might be like satisfactory right now, but later it's not going to be.
Right.
And that he knows like where it could put him and how his stomach would be. And like, we take so many steps forward, we don't want to take any steps backwards. And he just knows, like he said, I feel so much better. He tells everyone, I feel so much better. And granted, he's 8 years old, he's a kid, he's messed up a few times. And not saying it's his fault, it's not his fault at all, or that he's messed up, it's a kid being a kid, but he's snuck in a few things here and there, and he's had to like suffer for the sugar or the fiber after. And then he tells me like, I got this sugar out of the cabinet, I got this, or this was at my grandmother's house, or this was here, and I'm not going to do it ever again. And I'm like, it's okay. I know this is hard for you. And I know that like, it's not your fault. And I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but God made you extra special. And one day, like, you're going to be able to show others like how resilient you are and that you have a purpose. Like, and I know it's hard, but it's worth it in the end to have to say no like that. And it was just so mature of him, because I was like, it's going to be an argument, like I'm going to have to be like, no, you can't have that. Give it back, like, but usually we bargain with him sometimes. And it's like, if there's a party at school and they all got donuts and I wasn't told, or they got cupcakes, that's not fair. It's not fair. So we're going to do something in return that you like, that we can bargain with. And so he plays like games on his Switch. And so we'll be like, okay, we'll give you points toward this game, or we'll buy you this, which, there's some boundaries to it. We're not going to go all out, but we're like, a donut's not worth $100. but we'll give you something that adds up for you missing out on that donut.
Yeah, we do the same thing. My daughter is a very good negotiator too. They start to catch on.
Oh yeah, it's like his brother got this donut, and he's like, so I get a new PC, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, that really adds up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's equivalent. I'm like, no, I don't think so.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I love it. Their personality is really, they just crack you up.
yeah.
What do you think was the hardest part of the healing process? Do you think it was just getting used to not being able to eat those other foods for him? Yeah.
Yeah, and he did not have like any kind of juice, orange juice, anything, apple juice, any of that until he was like 3 years old. Like, call us weird, but remember, my husband is a dentist too, so he's all about teeth and sugar. So we limited sugar, and no corn syrup. We didn't do dyes. We No, he'd never been to a fast food restaurant.
Mhm.
He had been to Chick-fil-A. He liked the chicken nuggets, but then those are highly inflammatory and the peanut oil and
Mhm.
the gluten. And so that was hard, kind of cutting that out. And that was only for like rare occasions that we would even do that. I mainly cooked at home, but it would even be like popcorn. And of course, in ileostomy, you can't have that either.
Yeah.
And so it was cutting that out, or his fruits. He loves fruit,
Mhm.
but he's learned to like find other foods and then like negotiations with his games. And
Mhm.
so he's kind of like, we haven't made eating such a big part of his life
Yeah.
lately. And whereas it was like, you need to have your vegetables, you need to have your fruits, and you need to have your, like you can do healthy carbs, but you don't need to do processed carbs.
Mhm.
But what they feed at schools, I mean, it's not healthy at all. And so what he sees is like, I want this, and how come they get to eat this and I can't? But then he realizes, oh, when I do eat this, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
So it's just sometimes it's hard to remember that because you get in the flow of things and you're like, okay, this kid had pizza, he had cupcakes, he had cookies. And I'm like, that sounds awful. Well, he's going to have diabetes eventually,
Yeah.
But,
It's true. It's true. Um, how do you guys feel looking back on the decision to try no plant gaps? And if you were going to sit down with a mom who's at the beginning of their journey, what would you say?
oh, I would 100% do this. I mean, it's a change, it's a jump. At first, it's really hard, and you're like, we're so limited, but you're really not. You're not limited. You have to get with other people, find meets that work for you, and that without the spices, he has his best friend that just got discharged yesterday that was in the hospital for a long time, and he met him, same diagnosis, and they're currently like, we'll do whatever it takes. But there's also a lot of allergies involved, and like I'm helping her to show her like this is what we eat. You spoke with her,
Mhm.
and she's going to be in the call that we're going to be on eventually with all of the parents,
Yeah.
and it's so much less stressful. And all you feel like you pray all the time, right? Like that when you're in the hospital, you're just like, okay, like I'm at God's mercy. Like my child looks like they're dying. They feel like they're dying, but I'm at the mercy of these doctors.
Mhm.
And it's like they don't know though. They're not taught this because it's so rare.
Yeah.
So it's just you're at the mercy of these doctors, and it's all you want to do is just get them out. So it's like, why not just do the diet, and then you don't have to worry about that. I mean, yes, you might have your hiccups here and there, but they're manageable at home.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I couldn't agree more. And finally, I know you guys are Christians too. What role did God play in all of this? Do you feel like you were praying for answers and you found them?
100%. 100%. I feel like the only reason we are where we are is because of God and that we met you. I mean, I never I never was into podcasts. Like it was more my husband because I was like, I can do 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I can do an hour, but my husband's like, I can do 4 days worth of podcasts. And I'm like, like I don't know about that, but like I was at, I was desperate. I was on like the foundation for MMIHS and like on a Facebook forum and like, what are these moms dealing with? What do they have? What do they have? And like, you compare and contrast and it's like I found you and I was my husband and I remember sitting at the island, I'll never forget it. And I told my husband, I was like, I was in tears And I said, you're going to have to listen to this. And I was like, I'm going to contact her. And talking about your dying to thriving. And like, we did. And it went from there. And we wouldn't have found you if it weren't for God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would not have. And I prayed and prayed. And at a point, I was at a point in the hospital. I'm like, okay, God, like, what do you want from me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do whatever it takes. Like, and then we had a girl from church send me a book, and it was about a lady that has gone through so much in her life and how she always turned to God. And now she's written this book, and she's had like aneurysms, cancer, like traumatic brain injuries, and like her husband's had to raise her daughter, and but she still looks out to the Lord, and it's like there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I kept asking God, okay, please help somebody to find some kind of cure, or help us to find something that we can manage this. Like, help us, like, help him. I want him to grow up to have a normal life, to not have to struggle with this. It's not fair for a child to have to go through this. And I kept singing, like, it's in God's timing. It's not mine. It's God's will, not mine. And I kept repeating that. And then it was like, we found you. And I mean, like, I mean, it's like we just, I told you, I was like, God sent us you. And my husband was like, he's kind of like, I told you so with me, and going carnivore. And he did. But with like you pushing us to, and having like your daughter was kind of the trial and error, first.
Was.
And it was like, I was scared to do that. And our kids are trial and error. But I'd rather do it through diet than vaccination or something that hasn't been researched for like that you're injecting into your body for 6 months. And when it takes 3 years to find the long-term side effects.
Yeah.
So.
Totally. Oh, I'm so happy to hear it. I'm so happy that we met. I'm so happy that your son is doing so well. And I'm so happy that you were able to share your story with us today, because I think this is going to be really powerful for a lot of other MMIHS parents and just parents with kids with chronic illnesses in general. I want them to hear both of us talking about this and to know that it is worth changing your child's diet to save their life. And it can be done. And I'm going to send it out to all of the foundations. Hopefully they'll post it, maybe not. But we'll see, how they feel about anything natural or diet. But, hopefully they come at it with an open heart and an open mind. And hopefully they pray and ask God to show them the way too, right? Because that's what we did. And when we found the information, it all fell into place for us. And I know it did for you guys too. And I'm so grateful to God that He has used our children and us as mothers who were warriors, who are willing to do the work, and with our supportive husbands who are so wonderful and helping us. And now we have these beautiful, healthy kids who are going to be a part of a case series. So.
Yes, exactly. And I will say, if it weren't for my family helping me and backing me up and helping with his diet, and can he have this? Helping with make the broth, or helping going to get the yogurt. It takes a team effort.
Yeah.
It does. Like friends and family, or friends that are like family, they've all helped us. And there's so many people that it takes an army. It does. It takes an army. But too, if you don't have that army, it's doable with one person. You can do it. It's not so far out there that you can't make it work. You will make it work. You can make it work with this diet, because I mean, I was in tears every day praying, it's just a matter of time before we end up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Back in. Yeah. Until we did this diet. And, you get there, and, you get there little by little, and then you're like, okay, this works. This doesn't work. This really works. And he's gaining a ton of weight. From when we were on TPN to tube feed to eating by mouth and the carnivore diet, we have not had to go back to tube feeds, like, thank God, or we're TPN. And it's just like we slowly got there. But now, you know, I mean, the doctors just can't even like put it all together. They're like, what are you doing? And then she ran all of his labs. Everything was great. Everything was within the normal range.
Thank God. It's so amazing. And praise God for all of this. And also, thank God he has a mom like you and wonderful family that was willing to take the leap of faith and give it a shot, because now he can have a normal life. My daughter has a normal life, and it's all a work of God and to show his glory through our kids. And I always tell my daughter that I say your reward in heaven is going to be so much more because you suffered, and when you suffered, you were able to be healed, and other people are healing and seeing the glory of God through you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and when you get to heaven, there's going to be a big pizza and ice cream waiting for you.
Yes. Yeah, you can eat all the junk food you want. I mean, even though, I see kids sometimes and I'm like, your mind goes there and you're like, oh man, it's not fair. Like even my other son, it's like, he can have a donut, he can have an ice cream, he can have this, which, I mean, and you think in moderation, but our kids can't do any of that in moderation. They can't do any of it all.
Moderation.
And you hate it for your child, but you're like, okay, but you found this out, you figured this out, and we're doing this, and we know that this is what's best for them. And I have to tell that, but like how they feel just represents that they don't need that.
Yeah, exactly.
None of us really do.
No, of course not. We have our addictions, and the food system is set up to make us addicted to these foods that are highly processed, and we all struggle with it. But I think that my daughter, your son, are such great examples of self-discipline because they're children and they have to make these hard choices every single day. No, I'm not going to eat that, to protect myself. So we have to be so proud of them and use them as role models, because and hope that we could one day have the discipline that they do.
But I also think that that's God too, to give them such self-discipline.
Yes.
To be able to do that.
Amen. That strength comes from God. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mccall. It was so wonderful to talk to you. I can't wait to get this interview out, and I'll post it everywhere. Send it to you if you want to post it. I think it's going to help so many families.
I'm so excited. Yes. And thank you for asking me to do this. I'm so excited to share my son's story and just anything that we can do to get this out there and let other families like know. Like maybe it's not the cure, but it definitely keeps them out of the hospital and it works for them.
Yeah,
absolutely works.
Absolutely. For their bodies, their unique bodies.
Yes.
All right. Have an awesome night, Mccall. I'll talk to you.
You too. Bye.